Before you plant anything this spring, watch this. Early April in Vancouver always brings the same scene. I see it every single year. People standing inside the house, looking out at the backyard, coffee in hand, and thinking, alright, I really need to do something about this. Because after a long winter, most gardens don't feel exciting. They feel heavy, a bit messy, a bit neglected, and for a lot of homeowners, it's not just about weeds or old leaves. It's that whole space feels unclear. You know you want it to look better. You want it to feel clean, simple, fresh, and ready for summer. But you're not quite sure where to begin. And that's the part I understand. Especially here in places like Kitsilano, Kerrisdale, or anywhere around Vancouver, to prepare the planting in an effective way without wasting time, money, and energy. You should have a good planting plan. It starts with preparation. It starts with clearing the space properly, cutting back what didn't make it through winter, removing what's dead, overcrowded, or in the wrong place, cleaning out the areas that have become too dense, checking the soil, looking at drainage, looking at light, looking at what the garden actually needs now, not what looked good last year. That's the part most people skip. That's also the part that makes everything easier after. When you prepare the garden properly in spring, every decision gets better. Your planting makes more sense, your layout feels cleaner, your soil works better, your plants settle faster, and the whole garden becomes easier to maintain through summer. So if you're standing out at the window right now, looking outside and feeling a bit overwhelmed, you're not the only one. That feeling is completely normal, but the good news is this. You do not need to fix everything at once. You just need to start in the right order. And that's what I want to show you today. The same simple spring process I use every year, step by step. So before putting new plants in the ground, before you start digging, before you guess, you prepare the space the right way first. Because when the preparation is done properly, everything you plant after has a much better chance of actually working. Clean first. Before we even think about soil or planting anything, there's one step I always start with. And it's not complicated. It's just cleaning up what winter left behind. Because after a Vancouver winter, your garden isn't ready yet. It might look like it is, but underneath it's still carrying a lot of weight from the last season. You'll usually see the same things, dead leaves sitting on the surface, broken stems from wind or frost, plants that didn't make it through, and weeds quietly starting to come back. Now here's where most people go wrong. They skip this step, they get excited, they go buy new plants, and they try to plant into a space that isn't ready. And that just makes everything harder. So what I do is very simple. I start with a clean, light cleanup. Nothing aggressive. I'm not trying to make the garden look perfect. I'm just removing what clearly doesn't belong anymore. Anything dead, anything collapsed, anything broken, anything blocking light or airflow. Because when the garden is cluttered, you can't actually see what's happening. You don't know where the real problems are. You don't see where things are too crowded, and you miss the areas that actually need space. So before you fix anything, you need clarity. You need to see the garden, the structure, again. Now let's talk about weeds. This is something people always ask me. Should I remove all the weeds now? And honestly, this is the best time to do it. Spring weeds are still soft, the soil is moist, the roots haven't gone deep yet, so you can remove them easily without fighting the ground. And if you wait another few weeks, those same weeds become much harder to deal with. So doing it now saves you time and a lot of effort later. And again, don't overthink it. You're not trying to get every single root perfectly. Just remove what you can see. Keep it simple, stay consistent. So the order is always this. Clean up first, remove weeds early, then we move forward. Because once a space is clear, everything else becomes much easier. Open the soil. Your soil might look fine, but it's actually suffocating. Now that everything is cleared out, you can finally feel the ground, and this is the part most people don't notice. After winter in Vancouver, the soil doesn't just get wet, it settles, it tightens, it becomes dense without you realizing it. You walk on it, rain hits it for months, and slowly it closes in on itself. From the surface, it looks okay, but when you step on it, you can feel it's heavy, almost like it's holding everything down. And when soil feels like that, plants don't really grow, they just sit there. So instead of digging everything up, I do something much simpler. I just loosen the ground slowly. I take a pitchfork and press it into the soil, just enough to ease the tension, not to turn it, not to break it apart completely, just to give it a bit of space again. Then I gently move it just a little, and you can actually feel the difference. The soil starts to soften, it feels lighter under your feet, almost like it's relaxing. That's all you need. Because soil doesn't need to be disturbed heavily, it just needs a bit of help to reset after winter. And one thing I always keep in mind, the top layer is alive. That thin layer on top is where everything important is happening, so I leave that intact. I don't flip it, I don't mix it around, I just work underneath it, quietly, letting the structure open up again. And once you do that, everything changes. Water doesn't sit as long, the ground feels easier to work with, and when you plant later, roots move naturally instead of struggling. So at this stage, don't rush. Don't overwork the soil, just give it a bit of space and let it come back to life. Because when the ground feels right, you'll know. And that's when you're ready for the next step. Protect with mulch. Never leave your soil naked. This is why garden dries out. Now that the soil feels lighter, there's one mistake I see all the time. People just leave it like that, open, bare, and it might look clean, but it's actually not how a garden wants to be. If you look at nature, you'll never see exposed soil sitting on its own. There's always a layer on top, leaves, organic matter, something protecting it. And that's exactly what we're trying to recreate here. That's where mulch comes in. For me, mulch is what holds everything together. It's not decoration, it's not just making things look finished. It's what keeps the soil stable. Especially here in Vancouver. Right now, everything feels wet, easy. But given a few weeks of sun, a bit of wind, and that same soil starts drying out fast. That's when problems begin. So adding mulch now, it helps keep moisture in the ground so you're not constantly watering. It slows down weeds before they take over, and over time, it actually improves the soil itself. Because it breaks down naturally, it feeds everything underneath. Now when it comes to applying it, you don't need to overcomplicate it. You just want a consistent layer, not too thin, not piled up, just enough to cover the surface evenly. Usually around 2 to 4 inches works well. And the material, keep it simple. Compost is great, bark works well, anything organic that can break down over time. If your soil is heavier, like a lot of areas here, and for me, always adding a layer of mulch on top of any compost or any soil helps to protect your garden, but also stops weeds from growing into the soil layer. But the biggest thing to understand is this. You're not doing this just for today. You're building your soil year by year. Every time you add that layer, you're improving structure, retaining more moisture, and making your garden easier to manage. So instead of thinking of mulch as a finishing touch, think of it as part of the foundation. Because once the soil is protected, everything you plant after has a much better environment to grow. And that's what we're aiming for. Feed when needed. More fertilizer won't fix your garden, timing will. Now let's talk about feeding your plants. This is where a lot of people overdo it. They think more fertilizer means better growth. But most of the time, plants don't actually need that much, especially early in the season. If your soil has been prepared properly, if it's being opened, protected, and kept healthy, it already does most of the work. But there are a few cases where feeding really matters, and that's when you're growing fruit. Things like blueberries, raspberries, tomatoes, later on those plants need a bit more support. Not for leaves, but for what comes after, flowers, fruit. That's where potassium becomes important. It helps plants focus their energy. Not just growing bigger, but producing better, stronger flowers, more consistent fruit, better quality overall. And this time of year, early spring, is when you give that gentle support. Not heavy feeding, not pushing the plant too fast, just giving it what it needs at the right moment. And it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't need a shelf of full products. Even something simple like clean wood ash can work really well. A good 2 to 4 inch of compost. As long as it's natural and not contaminated, you can sprinkle a light layer. Or mix a small amount into your compost, that's enough. Because again, you're not trying to force growth, you're just guiding it, helping the plant move in the right direction, and this is the mindset that makes a difference. You're not controlling the garden, you're supporting it, giving it what it needs, when it needs it. And when you get that timing right, everything becomes easier later in the season. Less problems, stronger plants, and much better results when it comes time to harvest. This isn't gardening, it's a system. Now I want you to look at this a bit differently, because what we just did is not just a checklist. It's not just something you do once and forget. It's a system. Each step connects to the next. You clear the space so you can actually see what's there. You open the soil so it can support new growth. You protect it so it holds moisture and stays stable. And you feed only when needed, so plants grow in the right direction. Individually, each step is simple. But when you put them together, everything starts to work. And that's the difference. Because most people are always reacting, weeds show up, they deal with the weeds, plants struggle, they add more fertilizer. So all summer, they're fixing problems. But when you start with a system, you prevent most of those problems before they even begin. The garden holds itself better, it stays balanced, it becomes easier to manage week by week, and you'll notice something else too. You spend less time guessing, less time correcting mistakes, and more time actually enjoying the space, sitting outside, having a coffee, letting the garden do what it's meant to do. So instead of thinking, what I do, I need to fix next, you start thinking, this is working, and that's when gardening becomes enjoyable again. Not something heavy, but something you actually look forward to do. So this spring, before you plant anything, start here. Clean it, open it, and protect it, and then plant. Because when the foundation is right, everything works better. In the next video, I'll suggest what plants you can plant this time of the year and what works best here in Vancouver. And if you're interested, just follow along. I'll see you tomorrow.